My name is Jill Escher, and I'm honored to introduce our first speaker. In the introduction, I will preface with some personal background. I'm not a researcher. Instead, I'm the mother of 2 children with severe forms of autism. They can't talk, they can't read, they function at a toddler level, though they are ages 9 and 16 and in robustly good health with no physical abnormalities and having suffered no prenatal risk factors whatsoever and having come from families without any history of mental disability. For reasons no one can explain, their brains did not wire up normally, rendering them permanently disabled and in need of 24/7 care for the rest of their lives. We are now experiencing a devastating epidemic of this incapacitating and mysterious disability. For example, in California, where I live, cases severe enough to warrant inclusion in our state developmental services system, and this is a system with increasingly high barriers to entry. It's not about, they don't broaden diagnostics at all, they're doing the opposite. Those numbered about 3,000 in the early 1980s, 3,000 people with autism. Today, that number exceeds 80,000 people with severe forms of autism in our state. If we include the higher functioning segment, that number would be easily twice that. Our social services infrastructure is already collapsing under the weight of this ceaselessly growing demand. Why is this happening? It is sometimes fashionable to suggest that better awareness, a broader definition, and diagnostic shift are accountable. And that may be a contributing factor, particularly in certain countries and certain regions. But here in California, this data has been looked at repeatedly for those artifacts, and they are not found. I have an idea about what may be contributing to this stupendous increase in neurodevelopmental disability among our children today. And it goes back to a really wacko, random Twilight Zone discovery I made just a couple years ago. I came upon my own prenatal records from 1965. I was born in 1965 in West Los Angeles, and when my mother was pregnant with me, and I didn't know this until I discovered these old records, when my mother was pregnant with me, she was given hugely high and continuous doses of synthetic steroid hormone drugs that were thought at the time to help prevent miscarriage. Before she conceived me, she had had 2 prior miscarriages, and it was fashionable in obstetrics at the time to deem a woman like that a quote-unquote habitual aborter. So her doctor, who was a very aggressive practitioner at the time, one of the leaders in the field, gave her this witch's brew of progestins, estrogens, corticosteroids, and actually some other stuff too. How I discovered my records is in itself an incredible story, which I don't have time to get into. So it wasn't just this sort of uncontrolled experimentation on women's bodies with drugs that didn't actually help them. There were all kinds of drugs that were used. Smoking was very prevalent among pregnant women, sometimes even prescribed to pregnant women to help them keep their appetites in check. Radiation was used as a diagnostic in pregnancy with some regularity. And there were a number of other exposures, including chemical, occupational exposures, pollution of the time, leaded gas pollution, including. So there are a lot of things we can think about. My primary interest is, of course, in the prenatal drugs, which were administered so prolifically and in such high doses. So our keynote speaker today does not study this. He studies something very different. I'm going to contend that if we look hard enough, we might be able to find a place where we meet in the middle. Our keynote speaker is part of Dr. Stephen Scherer's team at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. He has engaged in remarkable research looking at genetics in autism families, including parents and sibling pairs. While the importance of de novo mutation is well established in autism research, his is the first study to look at the whole genome for more than a handful of individuals. De novo mutations are These are heterogeneous genomic disruptions that arose in the gametes of the parents, and the heritability of autism, it seems to be going back just one generation in many cases. In my mind, a red flag should be raised about the sources of these aberrations. Daniele Merico earned his PhD in molecular and cell biology at the University of Milan in 2009. Since 2011, he has managed the bioinformatics core facility with the Center for Applied Genomics at the Hospital for Sick Children. This data set is part of a collaboration between Autism Speaks and Google. It's called the Missing Database. And it comprises a growing collection of both Illumina and complete genomics genomes of families affected by autism. It aims to create the world's largest genomic database on autism, including over 10,000 families, not yet mine. Thanks to the Google Cloud, this vast sea of information will be made accessible for free to researchers everywhere. I think his work is very important, and I welcome Dr. Merico.